Okay, so we're continuing our discussion under the main heading of science to samadhi, using science as a scientific method to evaluate what we are. We are putting ourselves in a petri dish and find out what we are made up of. And then we went through different sutras to ultimately come to the seventh sutra. The seventh sutra we started talking about last time was that we were talking about the conscious things, and out of all the conscious things, there are some things or entities or organisms which are self-conscious and some which are not self-conscious. Meaning we know we exist, we know what does not exist, versus the animals don't have the way to differentiate. That intellectual level has not been achieved. But we know we are aware of ourselves. But then the question is, are we really aware of ourselves? So we went through the example, like when we go to sleep, we are not aware of ourselves. First 3 to 4 years of life, we are not aware of ourselves because we cannot remember any of those things. But also during the time when we think we are aware, a lot of times we are not. We are doing a lot of mechanical things and we are going after the things that we don't really matter. And then we keep on wasting our time. And the awareness, whether we're really doing this for the right reason or not, the very high level of subtlety that has to be developed at the mind level is just not there. We gave the example of smokers. They just pick up the cigarettes, put it in the mouth, and before they know even they finished it. Yeah. They are not even doing, intellectually, if you really look at it, doesn't make any sense to keep puffing and inhaling all these fumes which are totally injurious to your health, but we keep on doing it anyway. And unhealthy foods, we just start eating, we keep eating, we finish it, we don't even know when we finished it, and then we feel guilty. So all these things are telling us that even though we are supposed to be self-conscious, there are so many moments of life we are not self-conscious. So self is something else than the material world that we're talking about. The material world, under the illusion, it keeps us occupied all the time. And not only it keeps us occupied, we are looking for more and more ways to stay occupied. We are always looking for the things to do. What are you doing tonight? Oh, maybe I should do that. I should do this. I should do that. We want to keep ourselves occupied. Why? Why don't we want to go inside and find out who we really are? The question comes in, what happens when you go outside? When we do, spend time in the material world, what is really functioning over there? What is functioning is our ego. When we're hanging out with the people we like, that boosts our ego. We hang out with the people who we don't like. The reason is because our ego is hurting over there. So people who are boosting our ego becomes our friends. People who hurt our ego, we run away from. But ultimately is the play of the ego. Ego is trying to defend itself, no matter what. So whether we hang out with friends or we hang out with enemies, it doesn't really matter. Everywhere we go outside is the ego playing. But what happens when we go inside? When we go inside, there is no ego, there is nothing to compare to. It's just wide, open, infinite space there. You don't even have anything to identify yourself. You don't have anything yourself to compare with anything. So the ego starts shaking. So people are afraid to go within. So every time you go within, you have to put your ego outside, and that's the death of the ego. Mind does not want to do that. So there are 1,001 excuses not to do meditation. I do this, I do this, I do this, but I cannot meditate. Every time I go to meditate, I cannot do it. Well, obviously because the mind is running outside. The mind is telling you, don't go within. Obviously because it's the death of the mind. But we don't realize that. So it's all the play of the ego. So it's very important to start thinking that we have to start going within ourselves. So that's why the outside behavior we try to change, and we grab whatever straw that we can get to achieve the bliss, achieve the nirvana, achieve the moksh. But all the techniques which are given to us are based on the material objects. And that's never going to take you anywhere. because to know yourself, there is no other way. You have to go within. So what we do is, if we are doing any bad things in life, then we substitute it with doing good things in life. One night maybe we having a dance to the music in the nightclubs. The next day we want to dance in a temple, thinking that we did a dharma. First we are chanting Coca-Cola, now we're chanting Ram, Ram, Ram.
Yeah.
But either way,
Yeah.
we are not ready to give up this material world. And the more we want it, there are more and more agents available to give it to you. So every different religion has a different rituals. They tell you, do this, do this, do this, because that's what we want. We want to do anything that keeps us occupied. So throughout the day, if we are busy doing something else, we go to the temples and spend X amount of time thinking that dharma is done. We have not gone anywhere. We are running like a rat on a giant wheel, looking at the carrot. No matter how much efforts we have done, we are exactly the same place where we started our life with, and maybe worse. The life is a constant change. Either you solidifying your concept about spirituality, or if you are not doing it, you solidifying your concept about matter. One or the other, because you will be doing something. So every time you do something, your tendency, the vrittis and vasanas, is getting denser and denser and denser. If on the other side you go in the opposite direction, the grip on the matter keeps getting lighter and lighter and lighter. So you're developing a vritti and vasana of becoming spiritual. So it's one or the other. There is nothing in the middle, because there is nothing steady. You cannot remain steady. You have to progress, because that's the inner energy that's coming in. There is no way you can rest. There is no peace. So the only way it's going to happen is if you actually try to change the direction of your thoughts, behavior, action, everything. So we have to realize that we have to continuously make efforts to give up this grip of the matter. But we don't do that. So it's like we are trying to play a flute, and then the tunes which are coming out are not good. What do? People complain, oh, this flute is no good. Let me have another flute. Maybe instead of the bamboo, I'll have a metal flute,
okay.
and this flute and that flute. We're changing the flutes. The flute player is something else. Flute player is somebody else. Self is the flute player. Body, the mind, the material world, that's all flutes.
Yeah.
Keep changing the flutes doesn't mean anything. We're still worshipping the reflection of the moon rather than the real moon. Reflection of the sun rather than the real sun. The real sun is within us. All it is doing is reflecting onto this material world. And we're chasing our shadow. We think by changing the shadow, we'll be able to change ourselves. We don't want to change ourselves. So the self is where the change actually takes place. The self is shining from within, but then it is reflecting on your body or your possessions or your relationships, your acquisitions, whatever. But we are not ready to give it up. So we are going in the wrong direction. And that's the whole idea of 7th Sutra. Start thinking about yourself. So when we take the different vows to change our life, because we've been preached by our religious leaders, we are doing only putting band-aids basically. We are not really doing anything to achieve anything. Most of all these vows which we take on one part of our mind which has started to become little conscious that I want to do something spiritual. And the other 90% is sitting there and it has all the desires, anger, the greed, the fear, the anxiety, everything is buried within that darkness. Instead of making our 10% more and more brighter, we keep on taking vows, and then we don't realize that the decisions which were taken are taken by only 10%, but the 90% of the mind is not going to cooperate. So when the situation comes in, we break down, and then we start, making anger or greed and anxiety. I had one patient here, she's a chiropractor, and then she is very anxious. So I told her, I said, you should really, meditate. That will really help. He says, yeah, I do. or I go to the church and I pray to Jesus. And I said, yeah, but those are identifications. Those are just the symbols put on the soldier's chest.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that's him. These are all the identification we're tagging along, and we're walking around that I am Jain, I'm Muslim, I'm Christian, and all that. And that's actually the hindrance, because when we go within, there is no Christianity, there is no Judaism or nothing like that. And I said, before 13.5 billion years, nothing was here. There was just total energy, and from that the whole world was created. That part I agree, she says, because Jesus said that the world was created by God. So that part I agree, but I have to believe in Jesus. So you just cannot give up the idea. So these are all fixations that we have in our head, that we walk around with. All those identifications, I am Hindu, I'm Muslim, all these things create so many problems, and yet we don't realize.
We should ask them the question. Jesus happened only what?
2,500 years.
2,500 years?
Yeah.
What about before that?
I know. I actually asked her, I said, what was the religion of Christ?
Right.
He says, well, he was a Jew.
Right.
I said, well, so Jew decided to become a Christian,
Right.
and he was not even a Christian either. He
Right.
started Christianity.
Right.
He didn't know what he was following.
Right.
He was on his own.
Right.
He took his own journey, totally in the woods basically, and he got enlightened.
What about the generations before?
Exactly.
What about the
Right,
what about
exactly,
the God
yeah.
before that?
Right.
The Jew, Jews God is a word.
But what about before then?
Well, that's the thing. So now then it will come to the Jews, and the Jew says, what was before that?
Right.
Again, we are following the same
Same
path,
thing, yeah.
that basically
Exactly.
we are not coming out of it.
Right.
And I also almost felt bad that, I was trying to impose on. I said, well, whatever is your belief, you do it. It doesn't matter to me. I just want you to be happy. Oh, no, when I pray, I'm very happy. Guess what? The next day she calls. Say, Dr. Shah, I don't sleep. Give me something. She was looking for Xanax. I told her, I said, I'll give you few for now, but you really need to see a psychiatrist, I can't help you. So the thing is that we want to get sucked into all these rituals and all these things, which just keeps us occupied in this material world. And the thing is that once in a while some soul comes along, like Krishna or Mahavir or Buddha, they defy their existing beliefs. They walk away from existing beliefs. They do something for themselves. They go into seclusion. They go within. They rise their self. And then what do we do with that? We start worshipping them. By worshipping, we're doing again ritualistic things. We make them like a fantasy, like going into the Disney World, thinking that this is the palace and these are the fairy tales and these are the fairies walking around, and never come out of the Disney World, never knowing what the real world is about. So we create our own traps, and we don't want to come out of it. So
I think in case of Buddha and Mahavir, Buddha had a Anand and Mahavir had a Gautam. They both were so crazy about that they really couldn't pass beyond
True.
that. And Buddha and Mahavir, they both told that you have to leave me.
exactly.
Then only you can move forward. You
True.
cannot cling to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet you tell them to 40 million Jains
Right. Yeah.
to listen to Mahavir, give me up.
Right.
Yes.
Buddha himself said that if you see me,
Yeah.
if you see me on the way, cut me with the swords.
Oh.
He told his
Right.
followers.
Right.
So world is going in a wrong direction. Whether you are dancing in the nightclubs or dancing in a temple, it doesn't matter. Whatever we're doing, whether you keeping yourself entertained with, that's all really matters. All the religions have become entertainments to keep us occupied, so that to kill the time pass, basically. So don't even bother taking any kind of vows, because when you're taking vows, that I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, you're just playing with the matter. Forget about all these things. Rise yourself spiritually. Go within, and then yourself will start rising, that all the things that you wanted to give up, you will do it anyway. But that will be the fruit of your sadhana and time with the self, rather than twisting it around. So the more and more these religions and religious leaders are pushing you to take the vows, they themselves have not realized the consciousness itself. Because Rajneesh was talking about one day he played a joke on, literally, on one of the Jain Muni. He took the Mupatti away. And that was such a big riot. And everybody says, why did you do this? Why did you do that? So Rajneesh says, I just wanted to see how much attached he is to that Mupatti. If you have non-violence within, what difference does it make whether you kill these tiny organisms or not, this and that? We live with these identifications and we die with these identifications, and yet we never really know ourselves. At one time in Gandhiji's ashram, one sannyasi came and he says, I want to join the ashram and help needy people, and that's my goal. So Gandhi said that, if you want to come, you have to give up your orange robes. He says, how can I do that? I am a sannyasi. So Gandhiji said that if you come in, people will be worshipping you because you are sannyasi. They're not going to make you work. If you want to really work and help people, you have to give up your identification. Imagine, orange robes define you as a sannyasi. Believe it or not. Sannyas has to come from within. Your detachment to the real thing has to be inside. We cut out our attachment to our wives and children, but then people go into the jungle and they have shishyas, they have all the followers, and they get attached to that I have this many followers and I have this many followers. You give up $1 million mansions and then you're hooked on your hut. My hut should not be destroyed. My hut is in your way, and this and that and all that. You fight for those things.
Or the guidance,
So you give up all these things, you give up the whole sansar, and now you're fighting for Mupatti. Imagine how much attached you can be. So that shows that we have not reached to the higher level where we should be. And if we have not, that's fine. We can do the sadhana, but then we should not be guiding people either. Especially the people who are coming to you with a great expectation, they should not be guided. If you yourself have not reached, how are they going to reach?
Correct.
You have to set up the example.
By doing things like and preaching that we are not attached to these things.
That's right.
With Mupatti or not Mupatti, with white clothes or not, with orange robes or not, we are what we are inside. It's the inside transformation that has to take place. That inside transformation nobody is bothering to go into. And yet, a lot of things can be done if we try to focus more and more deep within. Total annihilation of your personality, total transformation of your personality is definitely possible. There was an article in Discover magazine, the last issue. There is a doctor, the name of Jeffrey Schwartz. Look at the story. He was a Jewish doctor. Got in touch with Buddhist meditation. And the Buddhist meditation is very good. They call meditation as mindfulness, that you're becoming aware of your mind. And it's a very nice word.
Right.
So he got really interested in that and got a lot of benefits from it. And then ultimately he settled to be a Christian. Fine, no problem. But he's a psychiatrist and he has patients with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders.
Right.
Very common disease. And people keep hand washing. People have a lot of basic things that they just keep doing it repetitively, even though they know that these are fruitless. And they actually start having blisters on their face and they become soggy and all that, but they keep doing it anyway. They just have to do it. So he had a bunch of patients and he did PET scans on them. They found out actually that there are two areas of the brain which are very active in the people who have OCD. One is caudate nucleus, which is a she-shaped structure, and another is orbitofrontal complex, orbitofrontal zone, which is the orbital, the optic is in the back part of your brain. So right in front of that, there's another area. So that orbitofrontal complex and the caudate nucleus, these are two very active things in the OCD. So what he decided was, which I've been doing, is use spirituality in a day-to-day life. He wanted to teach meditation to his patients. In meditation, basically, you stand apart and you observe your mind. and patients were having a tough time getting the idea, but they're trying to do the meditation, this and that. So, and they always have these group therapies. And then one day, what happened was they were discussing that, oh, I do this and I do this behavior. Because they realized that once you talk it out, maybe it will, help us. So venting it out, basically. So they had these group sessions. And one lady, stands up, and there was an old lady, and she said, it's not me who wants to do that. It's my OCD makes me do that. And that's where he grabbed it. He says, see, that's what I'm saying. That it's your mind and you are two separate things.
Yeah.
So he says, OCD makes me do these things, but I don't want to do it. So that means you are not your mind.
Right.
So you are going along with thinking that I have a problem. You don't have a problem. It's your OCD that's a problem. So little by little, he got them into do regular meditation. Some people could not do 100% meditation. So what he did was he told them to do an activity which they really enjoy, like gardening and something healthy and something benign, but they really enjoy doing it. Not OCD techniques, OCD behavior that they don't even want to do it. So little by little, their mind started getting better, and eventually he started showing a lot of clinical improvement. And then they repeated the PET scans on them. The activity had started going down. So this is the first time they saw the power of meditation. Meditation actually molding the structure of your brain.
It modifies it.
It modifies it.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. Yes.
See, as long as those people are occupied, they
True.
don't get into this kind
I'll
of
say,
symptom.
agree.
Let me add something.
Right.
See, when they go for the wash,
Uh-huh.
they try to throw water near the mirror.
Right.
And they also try to stop the bus even.
Right.
Because coming through their,
Right, OCD.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and really, if you really broaden the definition of OCD, we are doing OCD. We have OCD about getting hooked with materialism, right? We all are hooked on matter in a different sense. From the time we get up in the morning, first thing we do is look at the CNN. What happened? What are the news going on?
Right.
We are really occupied, and then of course we go throughout our daily life where we're dealing with the matter, people, objects, situation, trying to hoard these things, and then all day long we can go. In the evening we're looking for entertainments. Let's do this, let's do that, let's watch movie, let's do that, eat this and eat that, and go to this restaurant, whatever. And then in the night also we are thinking in our dreams. In our dreams also we are not giving up the material world. So our OCD is but just because everybody else is doing it, we don't call it OCD. But we are occupied. we are obsessed.
So it also
It's a
depends
different
on a repetition rate, right?
Agreed. A
Because,
lot of things we do, we don't even
It's
enjoy.
like we all wash our hands, but
Agreed,
not 50
but-
times a day.
Agreed.
Twice a day.
No, but I'm talking about the broader concept.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your out of 24 hours, if you sleep 7 hours, 17 hours we are continuously occupied with the matter.
Yes.
And then during the matter, we consider that as a real thing. We try to grab something, we try to achieve something, we try to hold something, we try to get maximized pleasure out of these things, all these things. And then even in the sleep, we keep on dreaming about the things that we will do next day to achieve this and achieve that. That's what I'm saying. Our mind is continuously occupied and it's obsessed. Even though a lot of times we have intellectual discussion, we realize that we are not the mind, we are not the body, but yet we cannot come out of it. That's obsession with the matter. So, but because everybody else does it, so it's okay, And just because a person gets older also does not mean that he's getting into the self-realizations. A lot of times elderly people are even worse than the children.
Older is not wiser.
Well, sometimes they get wiser from the practical point of view, but that does not mean that they are going
They are
within.
wiser in the material world.
Exactly.
They are
That
wiser.
wisdom is in the material world.
They can
Actually,
give
Eckhart
excellent
Tolle had
advice
mentioned
in,
that
what to do,
we
what
call-
not to do. You
we
can
call
teach
people
me
when they-
how to make money, how not to.
we call people when they talk to themselves out loud, we call them crazy,
Right.
right? The difference between those crazy people and us is the only thing we don't talk it out
We don't
loud,
talk it
but
out.
we constantly
We
we are,
constantly think about it.
yeah, that's the only difference.
True, agree. And that's why we need a clarity of our thoughts, not the clarity of our action. Our action may be very purified, but that does not mean our thoughts are purified. And the real purity, the yoga teaches you to purify your mind and your thoughts. Talking about Eckhart, Rajneesh also gives an example of one fakir that happened. His name was also Eckhart. And then one day he was sitting in a jungle, just being himself. Then some of his friends, it was a wooded area nearby, and some of his friends are passing by, and they thought that Eckhart must be getting bored, so they came to give him a company. And so he says, "Hey Eckhart, what are you doing here? We thought you'll be lonely and bored, so we came to give you a company." Eckhart says that so far I was spending time with myself. Now that you have come, I cannot do that, so keep walking. So a lot of times it's very important to spend time with ourselves. Ourselves, where ego has to drop, there is nothing to compare. But the meditation gives that avenue. It gives you a method to go within and spend time with yourself. It's very important. So when you spend time within, a lot of things can happen. There are a lot of energy centers located. We call chakras energy centers. Some people define as 7 chakras. Buddha defined as 9 chakras. So different chakras has different functions, but they are very powerful chakras. But until that chakra is stimulated, we are not going to see the full effect of it. A child cannot know about the sex centers. So talking to him about that sex is useless. He would not even see any fun in it either, because that chakra is not activated. But when the nature stimulates that chakra, and then because the nature, the consciousness needs to further evolution, so it activates the sex centers. And the centers, once it's activated, then the whole world looks totally different than it looked as when the child was there.